So thank you so much for taking the time to do this interview today. I really appreciate it. If you could begin with just a brief introduction of yourself, the work that you do, and kind of how that's related to the current state of the Bolivian economy.
Sure thing. Yeah, my pleasure. Well, my name is Sergio Alberto Fernández. I'm Bolivian. I am a lawyer by profession. I am a career diplomat, and I specialized in the international trade. And nowadays, I'm working a lot with energy transition, lithium, and rare earths.
Wonderful. Awesome. So if we could begin with an economic overview and a bit of historical background on the Bolivian economy. How has the Bolivian economy evolved over the past 30 years? What key factors have driven growth, and where have major setbacks occurred?
Sure. Well, we have to mention minerals, right? Like from the colonial period, like we're talking about 500 years ago until today, minerals have always played a major role in Bolivian economy. So that has not changed. So we had a lot of, not changes, but I mean something that has been added up to the economy was hydrocarbons, right? So we're talking about oil, we're talking about 1930s, where Standard Oil, an American company, made the first discoveries here, and we had this kind of partnership. So there was a concession that was the beginning of the shift to the, let's say, fossil fuels era in Bolivia. And ever since 1930 till 2006, there have been, if I'm not mistaken, 4 nationalization processes, right? It's like expropriating, getting grasp of those companies. So natural resources and Bolivian economy are really intertwined. So we're talking about an extractivist model, right? Since the 90s is when Bolivia started building this huge gas pipeline from Bolivia to Brazil. Then this pipeline to Argentina. So minerals were there. Of course, we're talking about tin, we're talking about silver, we're talking about gold, we're talking about wolfram, aluminum, and so on. But oil and gas were a major issue. Well, not issue, but I mean a major source of revenue since the 90s. Okay. So these the major contract was signed with Brazil, dates to 1993 and 96. So they signed this first agreement, and then the certification of gas reserves here in Bolivia were really huge. It was like 30 TCFs, right? It's like a trillion.
Yeah, a lot of.
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot. So the perspectives were fantastic, but we needed a lot of foreign investment, right? So in the 90s, as you know, in 1986, we shifted to a neoliberal model, right? We had a major hyperinflation, I think, after Germany's inflation in 1920 something.
Yeah.
Then Bolivia came. It was a hyperinflation, and Bolivia was really close to a default situation. It was really hard. So there was this norm called the Supreme Decree 21060. So this decree was a major structuring decree. So it kind of made a major surgery to the economy. Yeah. And we started incorporating this new openness to an open market model. And that way we stopped hyperinflation. We had a new currency because we used to have pesos here, Bolivian pesos, but we're talking about Bolivianos, right? So there was a major thing there, and we opened the market investments. So we reduced the state to a minimum expression. So that allowed to foreign direct investment to happen in Bolivia. So if we jump to the 90s, the same thing happened, and it even got a bit deeper. So the same political party, the MNR, it stands for Movimiento Nacionalista Revolucionario, the revolutionary nationalist movement. So it was let's say the second part of this neoliberal surgery. So in 1993, this new government, headed by Gonzalo Sánchez de Lozada, he brought this capitalization policy. The idea is, okay, we have a lot of public companies, which is good, but I mean, we need to capitalize them. We need to attract foreign direct investment. We need to modernize the whole state apparatus. So they opened the railway company, their national airline, the energy producing the electricity facility, and of course, oil, right? Gas and oil, the national oil company. So the idea is you bring a lot of capital, so we're going to be partners here where the state remains with 51% of the, let's say, the shares, ownership, yes, equity. You're going to get 49% as a foreign contractor there. Right. Okay, that's fantastic, but the idea is if you're going to be a 51% owner of the shares, that means you're going to invest 51% of the whole investment. But imagine, the state was trying to, survive there, and you had to invest in oil, in railways, in airplanes and infrastructure, airports, and so on. So it was a major task. So the state did not have the force, the financial muscle to do that. So the idea is, okay, so in actual facts, it was a privatization. So, okay, you bring capital, you invest a lot, and I'll just give you the license to do it, right? Yeah. So it was not an actual capitalization because the participation of the state was really small.
I see.
So that was attractive, right? If you're going to make investments, okay, that's good because I'm going to get ownership, I'm going to get a concession, I'm going to get like the freedom to operate, have a management of the resources. So it was attractive. Yeah. That way, we had Shell from the Netherlands, today the UK. We had British Petroleum as well, Total from France, Petrobras from Brazil, PDVSA from Venezuela, and so on and so on. So it was attractive. It was good business. Absolutely. That way, we got to certify this 30 TCFs of natural gas, which is a lot, which is fantastic. So Brazil said, okay, you have gas. I need, just Sao Paulo is like 20 million metropolis, so gigantic. So they need gas. So the infrastructure, the public works started there, and that was the opportunity to start exporting gas. So gas became the #1 export of Bolivia, first to Brazil, then to Argentina, then both together. It was a good business. But, minerals were there, always. Sometimes going up, coming down, the boom of commodities and so on. Economy is economy. Right. The thing is, gas was the major export, so it brought a lot of revenue. But the thing is, if you are negotiating, in the oil and gas industry, you need to, there's something called the obsolescing bargain, right? So if I'm the state, I just want to, give you everything, for you to invest here. So you're the company, you're kind of, I don't know, well, tell me more, I need more. Yeah. So you have offer everything. Because after the business is done, then the tables turn. So now I have total power because I have the infrastructure, the gas pipelines, oil pipelines, and the company does not. Yeah. So it's like a major shift, right? So you had to be really sexy in terms of business. You had to offer everything in terms of taxes and royalties and infrastructure, concession, everything. So that happened. Yep. Then the thing is, during all the 20th century, we had a lot of let's say, scars because of these negotiations. And we went to war with Paraguay, right, 1932, because of, many things. But oil was one of the issues because Bolivia is rich in natural resources, and the idea is, okay, there's a lot of oil in the Chaco region. So, we went to war, and allegedly this Standard Oil company from the U.S., they were not supporting the Bolivian state, they were supporting the Paraguayan state. So that's why we did not get to good terms.
I see.
So for nationalization processes, so it's hard, right? Yeah. So you have to recover again, so it's a cycle. Then, okay, we get a lot of revenue. In 2005, that's an important date. Why? Because President Sanchez de Lozada resigns, and then President Carlos Mesa is sworn into office, and he launches a referendum. So this is an important referendum. Why? Because with all that gas, the idea is, okay, we have the U.S., California is interested in our gas, and Mexico. Do we have enough gas? Yes, we do. Of course, so let's export to them. Fantastic. But the thing is, what route to take? Yeah. So it was Chile, right? And Chile, Bolivia and Chile have a not very friendly history. So when the Bolivian population heard about exporting through Chilean ports, it's like, I don't know about that. We should talk about it. Yeah. No, it's a decision made. So many things were kind of summing up to a big conflict, okay? Exporting it through Chile, that's a no-go zone. Then the International Monetary Fund say, okay, we're going to help you, Bolivia, but you need to implement some reforms. Mm-hmm. For example, creating this tax to the salary, to the income salary. Correct, yeah, that's right. So nobody liked that.
Yeah.
And it was like for everyone, it's an imposition, so, right? So the U.S. is telling you what to do. No, sir, you're doing a terrible job. So that's why, there was this major October 2003 upheaval here in Bolivia, and it ended up with his resignation. So Carlos Mesa is sworn into office, the vice president. He launches his referendum, and some important questions were, do you agree with using our natural gas as a foreign policy instrument to negotiate a sovereign outlet to the sea with Chile? And it won't. They say, yes, okay, yeah, it sounds interesting. Okay, let's go for it. Okay, yes. Do you agree with amending or, let's say, replacing the current Hydrocarbons Law? Yeah, let's do it. Okay, fantastic. So with that mandate, this president changed the rules, and he made like this. So he passed a new law for hydrocarbons, 2005. So what it actually did was a nationalization process, kind of,
Really?
because there was a surgery to the tax and royalty structure.
Yeah.
So he created a tax. It's called the Impuesto Directo a los Hidrocarburos, right? The direct tax to hydrocarbons. And starting that date, oil companies had to pay 32% of their revenue to the state. And the state would distribute this among departments, governments, and public universities, and so on and so on. So, okay, again, the obsolescing bargain, right? So the table set terms. So now that I have the infrastructure, everything is in place, I can do whatever I want. Okay, they negotiated this with the companies, so they were kind of happy. I mean, nobody likes, to pay more to earn less, but those were the rules. But then 2006. So since 1986 to 2005, we adopted this so-called neoliberal model. And we opened everything to private companies from all over the world. So the idea was, okay, they are like just pumping the floor, taking the good stuff and leaving us with the holes. That's it. So it was like let's say the general perception of what was happening. Then we had the so-called water war. It happened in Cochabamba, right? So they privatized the water facility to a French, it was a
joint venture.
Yes, a joint venture with Bechtel. And so that was a mystery, right? Because Bechtel, if I ask, does Bechtel come from? It's like an American company, European company. But in terms of arbitration, all of a sudden, they said, no, we are a Dutch company. What? Yeah. How come? Because we sold the shares and everything. What was the idea? As a Dutch company, they were protected by the, the Investment Protection Agreement, Bolivia, the Netherlands.
Oh, I see.
So you see what they did? They just kind of coded themselves as Dutch. Yes, that's right. That's right.
Or positioning.
Correct. And so what they did is that they invoked this agreement. They took us to court, the World Bank's arbitration court, and they won. So we had to pay and everything, but I mean the idea is that the water fees were like tripled or 4 times. It was a fourfold increase. So it was crazy. And people said, "Okay, this is water. We're not talking about internet services. No, it's water." So it was a big issue, a big struggle there. And so the idea was, okay, private companies are not good. They are taking advantage of us. This neoliberal model just benefits private companies and the rich, and they are totally against the poor and the people and so on. So that speech gave, not birth, but I mean they gave a lot of impetus or momentum to this coca leaf grower leader, Evo Morales, right? So his campaign, his idea, his punchline was, the name of his party is Movimiento al Socialismo, right? It's a movement towards socialism. So we need to focus on the people, and think about the natural resources sovereignty and natural resources pride and something like that. So we're going to nationalize oil. We're going to nationalize all our natural resources, and we're not going to get grasp of it because it's unfair for them to take everything and leave us with the holes. So he won with a 52% of the voting. It was a lot. He had majority in the legislative branch. So he could do like everything, right? Everything. And then, of course, that it's the end of the so-called neoliberal model. And they launch what until today is in place. It's called the sovereign model It's a communitary productive producing model, something like that. But I mean, that's what they call it. But I'm going to explain how it works up until today, because that's the issue right now, right? But the thing is, 2006 they nationalized the oil sector, oil and gas sector. But I mean, it was not like an actual nationalization or expropriation. Why? Because there were no arbitration processes, not against Shell or Exxon or Petrobras and so on and so on. I mean, why? Because I did a paper on that. I took an arbitration class at Georgetown. And my idea was to do that. I mean, and there were none. And it was like strange. The idea is they just modified the tax and the royalty structure again, legally speaking. But they left the company and the managerial level of the company intact. So no imposition of, let's say, Bolivian managers, no taking over the plant. So
It's still under the companies, these companies' control.
Yes, but the idea is, okay, you're gonna still operating there, but the thing, the black thing, the sticky thing that comes out, and the gas is Bolivian. Okay, I recognize, fantastic. Yeah, I won't do anything against that, but I won't touch your company, your assets, or the managerial composition of your board. So interesting, you see? It was just like this tax structure modification. And that's about it.
Like a rebranding of the existing
Yes,
structure.
that's it. But I mean, the show was important. Why? Absolutely. Because you unfold Bolivian flags, you take the military to take all those plants and facilities, and it was on the 1st of May. You know, the Labor Day here in Bolivia, May the 1st. So it was like this symbolic act, and the president saying, we have taken over our national resources again for the dignity of our people, and so on and so on. So, well, I mean, the visual impact for the people is, okay, he fulfilled his promise. But for foreign direct investment was, whoa, I don't know what to think about that. I mean, do you want to go there? I don't want my things to be taken over. So that was the issue. But then 2007 and 8 and 9, the same thing, but with an actual expropriation. We're talking about the telecommunications company. It was in hands of an Italian company. So in that case, yes, I mean, this was yours. Well, today is mine. You can continue here as a shareholder, but I mean, I'm taking control of this company. Arbitration, international arbitration, Bolivia lost. But of course, you had to intervene private property. Then with the airports, I mean, the 3 main airports in Bolivia were managed by a Spanish company. So again, taken over, international arbitration, they lost. And well, some other, then Endes, the electricity facility here, same thing, taken over, arbitration, lost. So in every single aspect, there was an international arbitration. They lost. Why? Because, I mean, they were protected by these agreements. Then we have 2009, a new constitution. The constitution says that every international agreement that is against this constitution should be either renegotiated or Bolivia should withdraw from that agreement. Under that reading, they said, okay, we have 22 investment protection agreements. We're going to withdraw from all of them. And they did. But these agreements, I mean, were wisely drafted. They have this clause that even though, let's say, you withdraw from the agreement today, you have like 10 or 15 years of let's say, lifespan of this agreement. So starting today, 15 years from now, then we're going to be legally divorced.
I see.
In the meantime, I can take you to the World Bank or some other arbitration forum. So they lost, and they lost like 11 processes. Remember, it's like more than $1,000 million lost in arbitrations. Because, I mean, you cannot defend. I mean, there has been an interruption. There has been
taking their property.
Correct. So it was like a math process. Okay, 2 plus 2 is 4, right? So you took it over, so you have to pay.
Of course.
So what was their speech? Not because of these evil neoliberal agreements. Those are the ones to be blamed for, the people who negotiated them. Well, no, those are legal instruments. I mean, it's not like, I mean, if you don't touch things, I mean, if things go smoothly, then the poison in those agreements will be activated. But I mean, that was the reading they did. But then you have a lot of mining companies, Vinto, for example, from the Swiss and from Canada. So it's a long story of nationalization processes and lost arbitration things.
Yeah.
So what was the idea? What's the model 2006 until today? This so-called sovereign model. I mean, they like to call it this socialist model, but I mean, Bolivia was not a socialist country. Bolivia is not and probably won't be a socialist country. It's a capitalist country, but I mean, there's this state capitalism that is in place. So the state has control, or at least wants to have control on everything, everything. So today we have a gigantic state that is implied in everything. There are like 65 public companies, but we're not talking just about oil, gas, telecommunications, airports, railway, electricity. We're talking about honey companies, honey producing companies, almond producing companies, milk companies, dairy products companies, cardboard, paper, and so on. I can only mention 10.
Yeah.
There's 65.
That's crazy.
And like 5 of them have a surplus. The rest, deficit. Deficit. So you have a gigantic payroll. Here, in December, you get a 13 payment because of Christmas, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
December is a monstrous thing. Imagine the payroll. It's gigantic. And those companies what are they producing? I don't know. I got some milk,
Yeah.
I tried it, it's good, but I mean,
Okay.
that's it. I don't know about the honey, paper. We produce computers, laptops, and
Seriously?
cellular telephones.
I had no idea.
Yeah, and the plant is great. It's fantastic, right? And they use this European company. It's called Magallanes. So fantastic. But I mean, if you're talking about technology, you need to think about how to update that technology, right? You need to have Android, for example, Android or whatever system you choose,
Yeah,
but you
operating
need
system.
to be up to date.
Yeah.
Imagine how fast technology gets obsolete, right? So
Yeah.
they didn't think about that. So today you have a gigantic stock of laptops, cellular telephones, and tablets.
Yeah.
The brand is Kipus. If everyone would like to buy it, please do, because we don't know what to do with all that
Support
stock.
the country.
Yeah. For example, you have a lot. They have donated a lot to Cuba.
Oh.
So that's the important and the key factor in this 18-year-old model is like politically driven,
Right.
not ruled by the rules of economy, of free market. It's always an artificial state-controlled system that, of course, generates a lot of inefficiencies. So what's the idea? Okay, instead of like leaving the whole productive sector in the hands of private people, we need to have like this revenue and distribute it. That's the social approach, right? So the Banco Unión is maybe the biggest bank in Bolivia, but it's a corporation. It's kind of private, but I mean, the state has control on this bank. So all the revenue from that bank is used to be distributed or redistributed. Then you have the Bolivian airline. We used to have 4 airlines, private companies. They were mysteriously, you had a gigantic tax debt. So I'm sorry, you're out of business. So they have a monopoly right now. So it's an inefficient, impunctual company. And well, what can we do? So what's the idea? You have this company. There's another one that takes care of ports. Yes, correct. Ports. Yeah. What's the idea? Yes, that's right. This agreement with Chile, we lost the sovereign outlet to the sea, of course.
Yeah.
But this agreement contemplates the possibility of designating ports for free transit of goods to Bolivia, from Bolivia and to Bolivia.
Okay.
And you have to create this customs agent in all those ports. Okay, so we have a company, it's called ASPB, right?
Yeah.
So this company is like our customs agent in all those ports. So if you want to export or import, you need to hire that company. They're going to take care of the logistics and so on. Okay, we need it. We need it, of course. In those 2 ports where free transit is enforced right now. And some other countries like Uruguay and Brazil and Peru, they have given concessions also to Bolivia in order to, mitigate the effect of landlockness. So we have this company in all those ports or free trade areas, or special areas, especially designated areas. The idea is, okay, if you're an exporter or an importer, you have to pay, and part of that payment goes to this public fund, along with the funds from the airline, from the bank and the telecommunications company, and you use it to pay bonds or bonuses. I mean, helps, subsidies.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of subsidies. If you don't want to, in order to stop school, how do you call it when you just leave a school, you don't never finish it?
Oh, you're dropping out.
Dropping out, yeah. To stop dropping out school, it's okay. You continue there, you get this money, right? So to mothers that are about to give birth, so of course it's like in order to to improve their health system, you get this subsidy.
Yeah.
So many subsidies. But the thing is, you increase the prices, you redistribute the wealth, and you leave the private sector to a side.
Right.
So, but the thing is, you don't get a very efficient service in all those. So the idea is just to keep the subsidizing system in a gigantic state. So that worked for many years, until 2015, when they realized that there was a depletion in the gas reserves. If you're a gas or oil producing country, you need to drill around 25 wells or make explorations, right? It's a major issue. You have to explore, it's a geological issue and so on and so on. So you need to invest a lot, but they haven't. So they have done 5 to 6 exploration processes in 18 years. So of course, there is no mystery then why they have, we are having trouble right now with gas reserves and oil reserves. What I do know is that Bolivia has major oil and gas reserves. Why? In 2017, I don't know if you have heard of the Forum of all gas exporting countries. It's like the oil producing exporting countries.
Oh, the OPEC or is
correct?
It okay,
but there's another one. It's called the Forum, the Gas Forum. It's the same thing, but with gas.
I see.
So that took place here in Bolivia. So you had Algeria, you had Saudi Arabia, you had Russia here, you had France, you had the US, you had Great Britain, the Netherlands. So all major oil and gas companies. So, having conversations with them was, yes, of course, there is a lot of gas and oil in Bolivia. And we know where those are. How come? Satellite technology, right? They just use another kind of much more modern technology. So we know. So why don't you explore it and exploit it?
Of course.
Because it's not good business here. Why? Because of the structure right now, the legal framework.
Yeah.
So, it makes sense. If you're going to invest, let's say 10, you want to take out at least 11, right? It's logical. So right now, this current legal framework is not sexy enough to attract foreign direct investment. So the idea was to empower the public oil company to have the muscle enough, technological muscle, to do the exploration on themselves. And but that did not happen.
Yeah.
You see, so it's going to take a while until we get back in business. But right now, this is the current legal framework, so it's not attractive. And so we are close to maybe 1986 again.
Really?
Because we were so big in terms of the state, but the capacity is we have over our capacity, so we need investment, capital, technology. So it's probably that we go back to a neoliberal system. Why? Because it's needed.
Right.
The state does not have the reserves anymore, and that's a reality right now.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so, just to get a bit more precise with the current, situation. When it comes to oil. So the existing structure, the neoliberal structure, does that still exist basically? It's just been like you said, reworked by Movimiento Socialismo? Or is it that now that it's all done by yacimientos petrolíferos fiscales, no bolivianos, no, the state-owned company that is?
Correct. So that's an interesting question. Remember I told you about the Supreme Decree 21060. So that's the mothership. That's the trunk of the tree, the neoliberal tree.
Yeah.
There has been an act, again, May the 1st, 2009. What was the idea? We put an end to the neoliberal model today.
Yeah.
Big thing, there are ancient ruins here. Tiahuanaco is an ancient civilization before the Incas. So it was a major symbolic thing.
Yeah.
Here we put an end to this evil model. Okay. So another Supreme Decree that it was supposedly putting an end to this.
Yeah.
I read it, and the mandate is like everything that has to do with the norms that come out of the Supreme Decree, the 21060, will be repealed. That's it. But there is no point there that says the mother decree, the Supreme Decree 21060, is to be repealed. So it's still in place.
Wow.
You see, it's like, okay, and all the show here, all the thing, he was dressed up just like this indigenous leader, and it's okay. So this was what, circus? Probably, right? And that decree is still alive. You see.
Yeah.
So, and you see, you have the oil company, you have the electricity in the facility, and you have the telecommunications company, Entel, right? So the thing is, those are corporations. That's the name, actually. YPFB Corporation and the corporation Entel Corporation. So those are public companies. But beneath those companies, the structure is you have 9 subsidiary companies. And those are SA. When it's called SA, it means it's a private company. Why? Because it's a sharehold company. So you have private sector, you have public sector, but I mean, the structure is still private.
Right.
So that was their way of saying, please don't go. I mean, I want to show that my model works, but I don't want to, kick you out of the country, right? Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. It's not a socialist country. It has a socialist approach, but I mean, you have private companies there. I mean, you still have Total from France today.
Really?
You have Shell. So many of these companies are still working
just under
here.
the YPFB structure. Okay.
So you create this, let's say, the transport company, the oil and gas transport company. Okay, right. It's going to be called YPFB Transport. But I mean, what are the shareholders? You have Europeans, Americans, Canadians working there. So you see, it's like a half truth.
Right.
Right. And so you have that nowadays, and it kind of worked. But I mean, as I said at the beginning, if the decisions are made with this political, highly ideologically oriented policies, then you're not going to get economy flow.
Right.
So the thing is, you just have to, spend and use the subsidies and so on. But I mean, if you don't reinvest, you don't make more further exploration and so on, I mean, it's not going to come back.
Right.
So the current legal framework is to harvest. It's a harvest law, but it's not a sowing law.
I see.
So that's the thing. And I heard yesterday the president of the public oil company saying, the problem is that this nationalization process did not think about exploration. That was their flaw. Okay.
Oh, there you go. Finally.
Then we have a new Columbus there. Just discovered a major. He has to go to the sea. Maybe he discovers a new continent, right?
Right.
He must be a detective, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting. So you get basically the inefficiency of the state, though, in that case, and so the private companies that are shareholders within this, they don't have the incentive then to go and explore because they won't see the reward of that. Is that the problem? And also, in Bolivia, like they keep gas prices a lot lower than in other nations as well, at least through importing. So I don't know. What's the explanation for why those private companies wouldn't want to go and explore? Because it does seem like Bolivia does still have a lot of reserves that could make those companies a lot of money.
Yeah, the incentives are not big. I mean, there have been maybe 2 or 3 laws exactly for incentives, but it was tax incentives. But I mean, if this is a public company, YPFB Corporation, like the mother company, or the parent company, you have to invest along with me. I mean, I can co-invest here, maybe 49%, but we have to join forces. And it has to be attractive. I mean, are you going to give me like a 10-year grace period for not to pay taxes, for example? That would make a good business. And no, forget about it. Can I get a concession? Forget about concessions. But I mean, the world works with concessions. In the oil companies and the oil sector and the mining sector, it's a concession. That's the thing. Why? Because you get this ownership, this possibility to work smoothly without interruption, ideological, political interruptions. You just make business.
Absolutely.
Right? And there's a confusion. That's like in brackets. I mean, Bolivians working or negotiating with private companies, big corporations, they think they are working with cooperation agencies or foundations or NGOs. And that's not the thing. I mean, they help, they donate, but I mean, this is private.
Yeah.
They are looking for profit.
Yeah.
That's how come these companies exist and survive in time. So that's the difference. That there's a lack of cultural approach of what private property is and the need for profit. It has to do a lot with Catholicism as well. It's like, no, because being rich is bad. No, why? I mean, that's the thing against the Protestantism, for example. No, I mean, if you work, you deserve, The surplus hands are not just to fight and defend your faith. I mean, they're to work. So there's a cultural thing. It's like being rich is not a good thing. And I don't know, I'm going to go to hell if I make a lot of profit, if I become rich. So that's a cultural thing.
Yeah.
And they don't understand that. If you're going to make business, it's because this is profitable. If not, I am not going to make business. It's as simple as that.
Well, very interesting. Yeah, the cultural aspect certainly super important there. So I'd like to go back a little bit then. Kind of the parallels between 1985 and today. What do you see there right now? Because obviously, if you look at the statistics, certainly inflation's been up a good bit. Massive overvaluation of the Boliviano. Do you think with the current situation where you have revenues falling, but the obligations that the state has to meet, in terms of subsidies, in terms of all their spending, that those aren't changing, or they might even be increasing in a lot of cases? Do you see a potential for, a 1985 type of hyperinflation again, or some sort of crisis along those lines where you have basically the state turning to the central bank to monetize their debt, basically?
Well, it is possible. There is a possible scenario of thinking of a hyperinflation. That's true. The thing is, fuel here is subsidized, right? So gasoline, diesel oil, everything is subsidized since 1996. But I mean, if you think about 1996, let's say the number of cars in Bolivia was, I don't know, I don't have the statistics, but let's say 3 million cars.
Sure.
But today is 2025. Maybe we have 10 million cars. Everyone loves to have cars. I mean, you are not going to see people riding a bicycle, right?
No.
Everyone
not safe.
Yeah, that's right. So everyone loves a car. And electric cars are real expensive here because, the tariffs are really elevated. So this subsidy has become like let's say, a black hole in Bolivian economy. And they have tried to delete this subsidy in 2010. But a major protest happened, so it did not work. So they had to, go back to say, okay, we're going to keep this because we don't want to go against the economy of the people, and so on and so on. So today, what they are doing is, for the last 4 years, they have used our international reserves to, subsidize this and biofuels. We produce here gasoline. I mean, we have refineries. We have never produced diesel oil. We produce jet fuel, gasoline. Because we used to our oil reserves. But now, since we did not make enough exploration, so we're in trouble. Yeah. We have to import this, and how do we pay that? With dollars, U.S. dollars, right?
Currency.
This currency, previously it was paid by our gas exports to Brazil and Argentina.
Yeah.
So with the depletion of these gas reserves, of course, we're getting a lot less and less, gradually less. In Argentina, last year, they just said, okay, we don't need your gas anymore. I don't know if you have heard about Vaca Muerta. It's a shale gas major reserve. Oh, okay. So they are now producing their own gas, and they are planning to sell it to Brazil, and they are renting Bolivian infrastructure, the gas pipelines, to sell it to Brazil.
Wow.
So it's a consolation price, because instead of getting 1,000, it's like $1.6 billion US from exporting, now we're going to get like 2 million for renting the infrastructure. So, you cannot use these reserves because they are almost depleted.
Yeah.
So what they're doing is they are looking for international loans.
Yeah.
So you get this US dollars, and the central bank starts, just issuing Bolivianos all the time. Mm-hmm. Since you have to pay 65 public companies plus the ministries and administrations and everything that has to do with the public sector, it's a lot. Yeah. So you're just injecting more and more currency to the economy. And if you see now, if I mean, normal currency, you're going to see really brand new bills, brand new. Like you're just issuing. It's always something similar to what happened in the 80s.
Yeah.
So we have major inflation, right? So it's like more than 10% so far.
Yeah, which is much higher than what it's been over the past 20 years. Bolivia is known for having really low inflation, like 3% or something.
That's right. That's correct. And so a replacement for that is trying to promote exports. But I mean, the current president said like some years ago, he doesn't like the private sector. It's like, okay, they're like vampires. They just want to, suck up blood. And I don't know, we don't need them. Because why? The economic growth of the country is driven by the state. So if you join forces with that, good. If you don't, I don't care. But today, what's the major export in Bolivia, I mean from Bolivia overseas, is the agricultural sector. So we're talking about soybeans and so on, quinoa and so on. And castaña is called Brazilian nut, but I take advantage of the opportunity. It should be Bolivian nut. Yeah? The number one exporter of castaña or Brazilian nut is Bolivia. So we're having an issue with the WTO to rename it. It's not Brazilian nut, it's called Bolivian nut, castaña, which is a really good product. I mean, it's healthy grease. It's an oily product, and it's a nut. So it's really good for your health. You can even make soap out of it. So it's fantastic.
Yeah.
So today, the agricultural sector is the major producer and exporting sector. Minerals are there. Minerals will always be there. So we always have that, which is a good thing. But I mean, those imports, I mean, the income of all those, that foreign currency is not enough to pay that. So there is this lack of balance right now. So they're just issuing and injecting Bolivians as opposed to US dollars. So you have a problem with everything. You have to import, let's say, spare parts. For example, the teleférico, the cable car system here, it's like an air metro system, right? So you need to pay this to an Austrian company. It's an Austrian company that built that. Okay, you need to pay the repair, the maintenance, the spare parts. Same thing with the airline, right? You need to do some overhauling in the US, in Europe. So everything that has to be paid with US dollars. So it's a major issue. But exports, for example, in beef, Bolivia produces a lot of beef. There are more cows than Bolivians, actually.
Really?
Yeah. We should have 1.5 cows per capita.
Oh, is that a thing? Wow, what do you know?
Yeah, and it's good beef. Good beef. We have good meat.
That's true. That's very true.
Right? That's a good testimony. So we export this to China and to some other countries, of course. But I mean, China, they can consume whatever they want. But the thing is, exports are controlled. So, Eastern Bolivia is always a contestant part to the political party because, I mean, they are more neoliberal. They like to make wealth. I mean, they love money. That's right. If you go to Santa Cruz, right, they like to spend and like show off and stand out. Money is not an issue. So you see, it's contradictory to a socialist approach and so on. So there is this friction. Well, it's historical friction that we have. But I mean, the thing is, with this measure, you bar exports. So the idea is, if we can guarantee that food sovereignty is guaranteed, I mean, you can ensure that is happening and everyone will get, normal things, rice, corn, salad, whatever. Then, of course, you can export because there is a surplus. But I mean, politically speaking, is a tool, to control them and say, okay, you behave because otherwise, Today, they are barred. So there is a ban to exports of our major exports. There should be a kind of a mitigation product instead of exporting gas. But no, they are, because the government in their reading is that it's a boycott. So they are trying to go against the government, the model, and show that it does not work. So it's like a payback. So you see, everything is politically driven. Correct. So that's a major issue. And that's what's happening right now. And they're fighting to do that because what's the idea? If you promote exports, you're going to get a lot of international currency. Absolutely. That's normal. That's what they need. That's regular. And if you devalue the Boliviano, our exports are going to be much more competitive. Absolutely. That's normal, right? So, but in this case, no. We want to preserve the purchasing power of our currency. That's priority number one. So exports, yeah, good if they happen, good if they don't happen, so I don't care. Really?
Wow.
This moment is crucial, and you kind of underestimate the power of exports.
Certainly.
So you see, politically driven, not pragmatism at all. It's ideology, and we are supported by like-minded governments, say Venezuela and Cuba. So that's the issue.
Right.
So you see, this model is politically driven. It's not based on statistics. It's not based on free market. It's not based on regular behavior of the company. It's all about state-controlled economy and artificially trying to inflate the state and say everything is okay. Now the problem is climate change. Everyone has the fault. Russia, Ukraine, climate change, the empire. You know, we love to say the empire, the U.S.
Yeah.
Everyone, but not them. Of course, they don't
Naturally.
have the fault. Of course, no. Who would have thought about that? No, your model is a complete success. So pragmatism 0, ideology 10. That's the issue.
So it seems to me then there's going to need to be some structural reform, some serious change. Otherwise, again, as we're discussing, it could end up in a situation similar to that of 1985, where you have a rapid increase in the money supply. In terms of short-term policies that should be pursued by any administration that might take office, because of course there's going to be elections very soon in August. What are some short-term changes that need to be made immediately? For example, perhaps a devaluation of the Boliviano or cutting the subsidies that exist to import gas.
Yeah, that is right. The thing is, what approach to take, right? Because you can make a shock therapy or like a long-lasting poison policy. That means you're going to lift the subsidy, all of a sudden, this is going to have a direct impact. Right now, it's like 3.74 Bolivianos per liter of gasoline. It could come up to 9 Bolivianos.
Wow.
So you see, it's a threefold the price. So it's going to have a direct impact. But then, if you take this gradually, it could work. But I mean, is everyone going to be happy with that? Are they going to allow this to happen if we're going to make it gradually? Maybe not.
Yeah.
I mean, as I was telling you in 2010, it was Christmas. It was a beautiful gift. We are lifting the subsidy to fuels. So it was, okay, we're going to wait until New Year, but starting January, we're going to start a major protest all over the country. So that's why they stepped back. So that's the idea. So this subsidy is unsustainable. It has to be lifted maybe really fast or maybe gradually, I don't know. The valuation of the currency as well, but I mean gradually again, right? Because the system as it's designed right now, it's like you appreciate the Boliviano and you kind of forget about the US dollar. For example, I have an account in a bank right now. It's in US dollars. My interest rate is 0.01.
Oh my.
Oh, is that nothing? So who would like to have US dollars in the bank? No one. It's illogical, right?
Yeah.
Where are you going to have it? Somewhere here, under your mattress? Of course, it makes sense.
Yeah.
So there is no mystery why you don't have dollars here, right?
Yeah.
So those two things are important. Then downsizing the state, that's crucial. You have like more than 500,000 public officials in the ministries, in the 60-something companies, and so on and so on. Really? What did they do? So now we have social media. So we know the reality of what's happening with many of these companies. Like 2 weeks ago, there's this potato processing company, right? So they're going to make French fries, they're going to make chips. And the question of this, I would like to call her influencer, but I would call her the agent of chaos, right? But the good thing is, like, she likes to show things as they really are.
Yeah.
So we have this potato chips. They're produced in La Paz, in Cochabamba, in Santa Cruz, and whatever. Why are you producing something that the private sector is already doing?
Exactly.
Right? Are you producing a lot? It's a major plant there. It costs like 160 million Bolivianos. It's a lot. It's a lot. And what's the idea? I mean, are you actually working? No. What's the benefit in our economy of having you? So it's multiply that by 65. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But what's the idea? You're going to get a lot of votes in these elections. So you're going to have 1 million votes. Like, okay,
Guaranteed.
you vote for me or you get fired because your company is going to be out
Yeah.
of the map. So that's, again, the political-driven economy that they are carrying out right now. So downsizing the state, that is important, and then open up to foreign direct investment, business. So we love to say the sovereign model, we don't need you. If you want to join me, fantastic, but otherwise, I don't need you. Well, we actually do need them. So you need, let's say, surgery to the legal framework in terms of foreign investment, in terms of oil and gas industry, and in terms of mining, and in terms of lithium. You know, we don't have a lithium law yet. We had like 3 or 4 bills so far.
Okay.
They're under discussion, like in the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
So maybe it's a good thing. Why? Because that law is going to be, again, a harvesting law. You know, it's like how I'm going to take taxes and royalties. How about exploration? How about, investing in technology?
Certainly.
Yeah, right. That should be the approach. But then you need to admit that you actually need. You're not like an island. No, you're not Russia. So you need to be. You need support. You need technology. You need capital. So the approach has to be totally different. We open up to so. Again, it's really possible to go back to 1986 and open up.
Yeah.
I mean, socially very unpopular, of course, firing people, closing companies, losing purchasing power of the currency, of course, but I mean, it's needed.
Yeah.
The model right now, as it is, it's artificially driven, and it's not sustainable anymore.
Yeah. I think the thing with 1985 is, to study that is how they were able to, maintain those reforms for a significant period of time, despite the massive amount of social unrest as a result. Do you think it could be perhaps that the situation was just so much worse at that point? I mean, obviously, the 10% inflation is very bad, but is nowhere close to the 60,000% or whatever it got to. So do you think that the economic situation needs to deteriorate more before there can be that political will to actually adopt these reforms that are necessary?
Probably yes, because right now we feel the effects. Right now we're feeling it, but I mean, they need to know that things are even worse than we actually know.
Yeah.
But I mean, right now, the current government administration is saying we need this foreign loans, everything's to pay this. But I mean, you cannot live about just lending or borrowing money from. I mean, someone will have to pay for that.
Absolutely.
In dollars, in yens, because we have a loan from Japan, or euros. So it's not a subsidy. It's not a gift. It has to be repaid by someone. Yeah. So that's not sustainable. So if we think about the future, what they are doing right now is like covering a hole. Yeah. Then we're gonna have to dig it up and use this dirt to cover another hole. Yeah. So it's artificial. Certainly. So you see, they need to. The population in general needs to know that the situation is even more critical than what they are saying. The president is always there saying there is no economic crisis. This is just a lack of U.S. dollars in the economy. Well, maybe that's part of a crisis.
Why is there
right?
lack of U.S. dollars?
Yeah, isn't that a problem? Isn't that a crisis? How are you planning to pay like many things, right? Certainly. So the idea is, okay, we need to open up our eyes and say this is critical, and it's not going to be solved in a year. No, it's going to take more. So a change of view, depoliticize the administration of the economy, and get the ideology out of this formula that needs to happen. Otherwise, again, artificially driven economy and living in a bubble that does not exist.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, then I think I'd like to close with just one more question about, again, the long-run trajectory of the Bolivian economy in general. In terms of where do you see the Bolivian economy going, over the next 50 or 100 years, despite the short-term issues that are being experienced right now with the proper changes, although they'll be very, painful in the short term, certainly will allow for long-term expansion. What industries do you see as really being the driving force of expansion? I know you've worked a lot in regards to lithium, so maybe you could expand a bit on that. But then also, maybe speak to how Bolivia could look towards diversification of its economy, of its exports, so that it's a little bit less reliant on, an extraction-based model. Okay.
Yes, lithium is like what we were talking about, like in the last 4 years. That's right. We need it, of course. I mean, if you think about climate change, one of the main drivers is the generation of energy. And within that sphere, you have combustion engines. I mean, they need fuel, right? So electromobility, that's the key driver of how to fight climate change. So that's where lithium plays a major role.
Yeah.
So you see the Paris Agreement and the whole climate change international policy has to do with this. So lithium has a key role there. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. Right now, we're talking about a technological era. So the key element for this answer is rare earths. Because, these elements are so rare, really. I can't remember the names of these rare earths. Really? And Bolivia has 11 out of them. Oh. Right? So the thing is, Bolivia has always been rich in natural resources, and these elements are key for microchips, microprocessors, satellite technology, the military, and armament. So we cannot, let's say, underestimate all these elements because, today we're talking about lithium, but tomorrow we're going to talk about these really weird called the elements. Yeah. So that should be an issue. Right now, I'm not sure if we are in time to produce lithium or batteries. Why? Because we're kind of late. No, the party has started like 3 hours ago. We're getting there at 2 a.m. It's kind of late, so maybe not. But how about recycling? Lithium, in 10 years from now, there's going to be enough lithium in the world market that it's not going to be necessary to extract it anymore. You just have to recycle it. Wow. It's a fantastic mineral. It's lighter than water. So the storage, the energy storage capacity of lithium, that's the thing. That's like the miracle. It's like, really? And it's not that abundant. It's not like super rare, but it's not abundant. So you have it here a lot. And here it's in a different presentation. It's in brines, right? So that's why, let's say, Mother Nature has done most of the task, because in Australia, it's the major lithium producer right now, but they use rock mining technology. So it's a very polluting and traditional mining scheme, as opposed to here, Argentina and Chile. So maybe we're late to produce batteries, right? Because you need battery-grade lithium in order to be, exploitable and make actual batteries. Yeah. But how about recycling? We're not late for that. We should maybe think about that, because right now we have 2 contracts already negotiated and signed with a Russian and a Chinese company. But the animosity that has arisen because of that is too high. I don't think they will get ratified by the Bolivian National Assembly. So I think it's my personal perception. That's a no-go zone. Okay. Then you have Europeans. Survey of what's the perception about the participation of Russia, China, the US, and Europe in the lithium industry. Russia, China, negative, 100% negative. No-go zone. I don't like them. They don't have the technology, and their way of working is like really different. As opposed to European and American companies. Yeah, possibly moderate, positive, negative. But so you see, it's a different perception. So if you do things correctly, because they have negotiated that, and then they have approached the communities that are surrounding the salt flats. There are 31 salt flats in Bolivia, not just one. Uyuni is the biggest one, right? But there are 31. Yeah. And the chemical composition changes a lot. Really? For example, Uyuni, it has like a ratio of 6 grams of magnesium versus 1 of lithium. So you see, there's a lot of, let's say, impurities. Okay. But in Pastos Grandes, it's 1 to 1. Wow. So it's really pure. So you do like this, you get lithium. Yeah. So it's really different. So it depends if things happen, as I was telling you, if you make the investment enabling environment attractive, it could happen, but it needs to happen like right now. Yeah. What do mining companies like? Concessions. Everyone likes that. I don't want to, knock on your door and say, "Can I work here?" Yeah, sure. And can I leave? Yes. No, I want to work there freely, smoothly. So concessions is something that is like a must for a private company, but the Bolivian government say, "No, forget about it. No-go zone. Don't talk to me about concessions because it's legally forbidden." So it could happen, but it has to happen like really fast, but we need to make this legal framework attractive. But lithium, right, to the 2025, 2035. But then think about rare earths. Cobalt, it's something that we have heard about, so it doesn't sound so weird. So there are some reserves here in Bolivia. Then you have rubidium that it's even the price is even more interesting than lithium.
Yeah.
So nobody knows about it. And there's another element. It's called indium. I never heard about it. Yeah, but they tell me that when they exploit wolfram or aluminum, they say, I'm going to take this kind of garbage that comes along with it. What is it called? It's called indium, but you don't care about it. It's really valuable.
Yeah.
So we don't know about it, so they just take it. Yeah, they go to
gosh.
Japan, to Korea. So we don't know what we have in our own backyard.
Right.
So you see, it's important to have information and to be smart and quick. And get this business approach, not politically ideological approach, because it's not going to take us anywhere.
Absolutely. Well, I thank you very much for the time and the opportunity to interview. I think it's been extremely valuable for me, and I hope for the listeners as well, just to start with a historical picture of the development of Bolivian economic law and just the economy in general, and then moving more towards the current situation, and finally finishing off with the long-run outlook for the exploitation of lithium, and then also the rare earth metals as well. So again, I think this has been super valuable, super educational for me, and so I really appreciate your time. Thank you very much. All the best.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for having me. Thank you.